What are all these people doing here on a hot June day for a boring subject, landscape design? I'm sure happy to see everybody, but I have to say you very much surprised me. Everybody's interested in having an unboring landscape. How many of y'all are actively working on landscapes right now? Okay. How many of y'all are in, shall we say, a bare palette where nothing is already there? Okay. Very good. And anybody not on a standard residential lot? Okay, not. Okay, so we talking really small or really large?
Half acre.
Half acre. 4 acres? Okay.
Well, we want to do around the house though.
Okay, very good. Well, it is, you know, we decided to do this in kind of 2 parts. And it's not an easy thing to do. You know, it'd be far better if I could put up a screen and show you a jillion pictures, but I'd probably just put you to sleep doing that. So what I want to really do is tell you about some of the basic principles for doing a landscape design. Most people go about it entirely wrong. Tell you about, to me, what is wrong with most of the landscapes today, and just tell you a few things about just decisions that you will make at this point that are really going to affect how easy it is to maintain your landscape in the future, and how, you know, just how much general trouble you're going to have. And I do want to emphasize that we're talking South Texas. Other parts of the country, there may be some other things that are very, very different. But the most critical part of any landscape is planning before you get started. In fact, the last thing I really want you to think about is plant varieties. And when you do your basic landscape design, you shouldn't be trying to write names of plants in there at all. Landscape planning should concentrate on arrangement. You should be thinking about the size of things. You should be thinking about textures that you want to create. But just put it out of your mind, you know, that you want to have a Yopon holly or whatever. Now, if you want to plan for a vegetable garden, that's fine. If you want to plan for a rose garden, that's fine. But a lot of people go out and they want to pick out a bunch of plants and then take them home and figure out where to put them. To me, that is totally the wrong thing to do. Plan for the look that you want in your landscape, and then you choose the plants that will fit that plan, that will grow to the size that you want them, that will grow in the shade or sun, whatever you have. So for today at least, I would really prefer that you just totally put plant material, the actual individual plants, completely out of your mind. I think the first thing to really think about when you're doing any landscaping, let me back up for just a second. Those of y'all that have some existing landscaping that you're thinking about working around, if you don't like what's in there, rip it out. You're not married to it. Those plants are not members of the family. If you have a real soft spot in your heart for some of them, dig them up or put a sign out that says free plants you dig or whatever else. But one of the dumbest things I see is people will go out and spend literally sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on a home. Come on in, and there's room around.
All right, thanks.
But people will spend a huge amount of money on a home, and yet they feel like they're married to those 10 crappy plants that the builder put in order for you to get a loan. And that's what lots of the basic landscaping is built around. If you get a VA loan or a government loan, you have to have 2 trees, 8 shrubs, and grass in the front yard. And so the builders typically provide this, and you can count on a couple of things. Number one, the plants are going to be the cheapest thing they can find and probably the lowest quality thing they can find. If you move into a new home that already has landscaping and you don't like it, stop worrying about how you're going to live with it. There's this wonderful product, I like to call it, called Chainsaw. It will take care of a lot of problems. Come on in, guys. There's room. Okay. People can scoot around a little bit. If it gets too comfy, we'll put a fan in here and be sure it doesn't get too hot. Hi. But anyway, the first thing, if you're in a home or if you're in a landscape that you want to redo, begin by visualizing that there's just nothing there. Now, in the case of big trees, you're probably going to want to leave those things, especially if they're good quality trees, be they cypress or oak trees or pecans or something like that. But I had an old horticulture teacher in college that defined a weed as a plant in the wrong place. And his example was a pecan tree, maybe our state tree, maybe an absolutely fantastic tree, but if it's sitting in a spot where you want to have a swimming pool, it's a weed. So it needs to go. So anyway, just don't think about what you already have. Even if you have some landscaping, even if you're moving into a home that has some landscaping, if you don't like it, just pretend that it's not there. Now, the first thing that I think anyone should ask themselves when they're getting ready to do a landscape is how you're going to use the yard and who is going to use the yard. Do you have kids? Do you expect to have grandkids? Is it really important that you have 3 big labs and they get to use the whole backyard? You know, those things are really, really important consideration. If you have pets, you're going to need at least a small amount of grass. If you have kids, you're going to need at least a small amount of grass. But think about what you want in your landscape now and what you will want in your landscape in the future and who is going to use it. Come on in, guys.
Okay.
To me, one of the biggest mistakes that people make in yards, and if there's one thing that I want to see, there's room. Come on in, even if you sit on the steps or wherever. Yeah. Probably the biggest mistake that people make with yards is putting fence-to-fence grass. I would say the average yard out there is probably at least 75% grass. Some yards are 95% grass. Why? Why do you want to saddle yourself to fighting grub worms every summer? Why do you want to force yourself to have to mow every week? Why do you want to be using an immense amount of water? It's just kind of sort of the American norm. Everybody thinks I've got a house, I have to have a big grassy yard. That's the first thing that I would like to see eliminated, you know, from yards. I think the modern yard should be maybe 15% grass as opposed to 50% grass. Again, if you have kids that need a lot of yard to run in, you may want to modify that. You may want to have more grass in some areas. But when you start the planning process, think more about what we call hardscape. This would be things like decks, like pergolas, like maybe a hot tub, maybe a water garden. All these things are really not that expensive, they're not that difficult to maintain, and they're not that hard to install. You know, so many people say, oh gosh, I just love, you know, the water garden that such and such have. When you come into the nursery, watch, especially kids, where's the first place that people head? It's to the fish pond. If y'all lose your kids and you know where they are, go look at the fountains and the fish ponds. That's where the kids are going to be. Think about the things that you would like to have in your landscape before you get started. If you enjoy living outdoors, dining outdoors, if you love your garden, you know, you love to go out and sit and have a cup of tea in the morning, glass of wine in the evening, whatever else, keep these things in mind before you start the planning process. And plan for the room. On a garden bench, think about where you're going to put it. Don't landscape and then start looking for a place to put a fountain. Think about where the best place would be to put it. If you want statuary, bird bath, hot tub, you know, whatever else, sit down and make a list of the things that you want to have in that landscape. Now, if you have very specific things that you love, go ahead and buy. Put them in storage, put them somewhere. You see a fountain that you absolutely love, a swing you love, you know, an ant, whatever. Go ahead and acquire the things that you want to include in your landscape. Again, most people do a landscape design and then they find all these things that they want to put in the landscape after the fact. And a great majority of the time, I hate to say it, a lot of the things that I deliver, people don't have a good place for it. They're redoing something that's already there to accommodate something that they love. Think very hard in advance about the things that you want to put into that landscape before you ever get started. When you're ready to begin the design process, of course, first thing you need is a good drawing, and should be drawn to scale. In the records, in your permanent records, you will have at least a basic plat that is going to tell you where the boundaries of your property are, where